Good morning, everybody. How are you this morning? It is a privilege to be back with you after a period of absence. I don't know what's going on. I'm seeing some scrambles there, but yes, it's a pleasure to be back on the In Perspective show. Pleasure to be back on the air as we treat with some of the topical issues in and around Guyana today and in the days that have passed, the immediate past few days. Um, the temperature in New York City at the moment is what? I'm not even seeing what the temperature is. Hold, let me check what the temperatures would say in here. It Wow, it's not even telling me what's going on here. This morning we have a set of issues here. 61 degrees, 61 degrees here in Queens, New York. I'm not sure that we are on. Um, Let me just check to see what's going on. Just checking. See what we're doing. I'm I'm not sure we on Facebook, Andrew.
Yeah, we're on
All right. 'Cause I'm not getting any indication here that um okay. All right. So yes, like I was saying, the temperature is 61 degrees currently. I was just checking in to make sure that all is well. Um okay. So this morning we have a number of issues to look at, to a number of issues to address. Um, I'm noticing that I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's going on in the news in Guyana, not in America and in England and in Canada and all about the place. In Guyana specifically, um, I am seeing and I've been reading that so far the PPP's commissioners, the PPP's commissioners have moved a motion. I guess it's a motion at the level of the commission itself. Has to be, cannot be a motion in court, but they have moved a motion at the commission for Mr. Keith Lowenfield, the chief elections officer, the deputy chief elections officer, um, Miss, um, what's trying to get the thing here. It's been a while since I've interacted. Miss Miller and Miss Myers, Miss Roxanne Myers, and returning officer Region 4, claimant Mingo to be fired immediately. They have moved a motion for them to be fired immediately. And while while that might be, for some people, it might be a satisfying thing. These cronies will feel, happy that this is done. This is something that we anticipated would happen a long time ago. As a matter of fact, they tried it already, and they did not succeed. So this is their second attempt. This is their second attempt, and from the information that I have, this is not necessarily going to fly. The the AP and UFC I think has filed. They have taken legal action to stop this bit of nonsense from going forward. But while this is happening, this is it's strange because while this is happening, lots of Guyanese are suffering. If you look around, I don't know in your area what's going on, but if you look around, you'll see that while the PPP is fighting up to have GCOM workers dismissed, you have thousands, tens of thousands of Guyanese who are suffering because of the floods. You look at the people in Myconi Creek, Mora Point, it's flooded out. Their fowls are walking in water. Their layers are walking in water. Their meat birds are, most of them have died. Those who they can't find places to put them high because meat birds are not like layers. Layers can fly and go up on some mechanism that you put there for them to go up high. Meat birds can't do that. They are ground dwellers, so they will die. And that is what is happening. So that is happening in Moore Point, the back of Mahika Creek, Myconi Creek, the back of their Barry. They're all flooding out. Uh, in Georgetown, the place is flooding out in some areas. On the East Bank, the place is flooding out. On the highway, the place is flooding out. In Linden, the place is flooding out. In Kokwani, whole houses, entire houses on stilts. Entire houses on stilts are covered. And the PPP is busying itself, or they're busying themselves with this foolish notion of looking to have people in GCOM dismissed. That is of paramount importance to these people. Aside from that, what is more embarrassing in this day and age, when the world is looking to ensure that people's rights are fully represented, the PPP is gloating. They are boasting. You check today's edition of the Guyana Chronicle, you'll see they are boasting about distributing 15,000 hampers, 15,000 flood relief hampers across the nation. This is not in Linden or in Kokwani or at the back of Myconi Creek or Mahika Creek or somewhere like this. Is not there. This is in the whole country, the entire country. They have distributed 15,000 flood relief hampers and they're boasting about that. What is there to boast about 15,000 hampers? What is there to boast about 15,000 hampers? People in Bartica are flooded out. What you put Linden and Bartica alone together, 15,000 hampers are dead. Bartica and Linden alone, 15,000 hampers are dead. The East Bank, 15,000 hampers are dead. But they are finding it convenient to boast about distributing 15,000 flood hampers in a situation when Guyana is in a crisis. While that is happening, they are making time. They are making time to seek the dismissal of these workers from GCOM. And I saw a post by one of their cronies, some Passad last night. I don't know. Most of these names are fake anyway, so you can't look at the names. But this post, the person put up a statement that was made by the former Attorney General, Mr. Basil Williams, when he said something to the effect that if you are if a member of an organization is charged or indicted, and that person is interdicted because they're indicted, and the boss or the chairperson or the supervisor is also indicted, they should also be interdicted. And they're using that to say, well, look, we have all right to ask for these people to be dismissed. because Basil Williams said that. That's what Basil Williams said. That's what the AP and UFC man said. These people, as we would have seen over the past months, the past number of months, heading into a year, these people have become experts at cutting out small sections of videos and putting it out there in uh, in their own context, taking it out of the original context, putting it in their own context and circulate it for political gain. So this is exactly what they have done. Taken Mr. Basil Williams's statement from an entire press conference on that particular issue, just a little piece of it. Maybe what? The same thing they did to me. They took what, 22 seconds, a 22 seconds clip from a 20 minutes conversation in my case, and put it out there and said, this is what Bork said. Now, this here, they have taken, I think it's about 10, 15 seconds clip from Mr. Basil Williams' speech and put it out there saying that this was the AP and UFC's position. Therefore, that should be the standard. And people should stop questioning the fact that the PPP's um, what you call them, commissioners have asked for these employees to be dismissed. Well, go ahead and dismiss them. And then the other thing that is disturbing, I believe honestly, I honestly believe that I I am gonna kind of steer clear away from uh, politics in Guyana, because the Guyanese people at home are sitting down there and just, just saying, well, whoever comes to do, because if we speak up, they're gonna shoot me down. If we go out and protest, they're gonna send the police to shoot us up. So we not going to do anything out there. We're not objecting to anything. We're not protesting anything. We're not doing anything. We just there. The fact that we could live, we satisfied with that. So I seriously am thinking about just dropping all these political things. The other thing is that we have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. You have a lot of questions. You are people who follow me and the stream, and you come on to get information that sometimes information that is made available on this particular program is fresh. Some people make declarations on this. Some people make known their position on issues on this program. So some bits of information shared here is considered, fresh, as one of the American politicians said over the weekend. But the strange thing is that we continue to have a situation where, in some instances, some of our own politicians are refusing to make themselves available to the people who support them, because we don't necessarily have PPP people here. You know, we don't necessarily have PPP people coming on here, because if they come on, they've got to be quiet or make a point and make it very respectfully and in the context of the conversation. Because if they do not do that, if their presentation is not in line with what we require, they are going to be removed unceremoniously from the program, or from the page, or from the chat. You understand? Now, I have respectfully asked our parliamentary opposition leader to come on the show so that we can be appraised of a number of issues. And we're going into 3 weeks now that I'm waiting for an indication as to when. I am sure that in my communication with the respected honorable member of the House, I indicated that we would have been happy to have that conversation the following week, or the said week. I think they said it. I said the next week, to be fair. And I got a response saying, thanks and so on, and I will get back to you with regards to a convenient day. Well, it will appear as though that day hasn't arrived. The same thing with, like I said, on a number of occasions, the Minister of Health not coming on. What is strange in all of this, all these things that are happening, the all of the old um, people in the past PPP administration who have been fingered in criminal activities are suddenly back. They are reintroducing the people to the system, reintroducing them. So you have Ramsami is back, Sheikh Bashk is back, and the whole posse is coming back. You've got Brassington is back, and the people who rip off GPL, they're all back and enjoying life. And then all of a sudden, I'm observing too that Guyanese are taking it very easy. The last time I spoke with somebody, I don't remember who it was, and I asked about the position with regards to uh what's her name? This corrupt American being in Guyana there, uh, um, Sarah Lynch. You know, I asked, what are we doing about her? And I was told, in Guyana, we respect the people's um, diplomatic representatives and what have you. Now, observe what's going on. Observe what's going on. She, it would appear to me, has given back. She's engineered things in such a way, as far as I'm observing, that many of these people whose visas were taken away from them, you know, some of them are getting back their visas, it would appear to me, because you can't come to the States without a visa if you're Guyanese. And I'm observing that some of them are coming here. Now, the other thing, I'm waiting. I'm told that our guest for today is in a meeting, and she's wrapping up the meeting. So I'm waiting for her to an indication that she's out of the meeting and available. So we just holding the time, holding the hands of the clock as we move. But I have been asking for the longest while for a high-ranking representative of the APNU AFC to come up to the USA, maybe to go to Canada, maybe to go to London and speak to the people there, speak to your comrades. Since elections have ended, not one senior ranking, high ranking member of the APNU AFC, or even more particularly the PNCR, has put foot in the diaspora. None. Not one single one. Now, Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, who was fully entrenched in the is his this whole he threw his full support behind the AP and UFC in the elections impasse. But because nobody saw it necessary to come, he is now in bed, it will appear, with the PPP. Because as you would have noticed if you follow in the news up here, and as it relates to Guyana and Guyanese, you may have observed that the PPP dispatched the same disgraced member of the House, Mr. Kwame McCoy, to the USA to attend that disgraceful, despicable thing that I saw even my very good friend Mark Benschop bigging up, bigging up this naming of this square, this area in Queens as Little Guyana. And if those of you who live in New York City, you can spread the word, you can tell the people, you can speak the truth, you can make it known who live in that area, who live in that area. You know, you cannot name a place that is overwhelmingly occupied by one particular race group in Guyana Little Guyana. The message you are sending is that Guyana is a place where this is the only race there. The others are just a scant minority. I don't see how you could applaud something like that and then declare that, okay, well, we're looking for someplace in Brooklyn next. Even if you go to some parts of Brooklyn and you call it Little Guyana, I would not necessarily agree with it because those parts may very well be areas where the predominant um, population of Guyanese that it is are African ancestry. That is not necessarily reflective of the Guyanese population. You go to the people that compare the thing with Chinatown and all. You look at Chinatown. Chinatown is heavily populated with Chinese or people from China or people who are of Chinese ancestry. That is Chinatown, whether it be in Manhattan or in where Chinatown you go into to different states. Chinatown is basically people who come from China, predominantly the people who come from that part of the world. You understand? Why would you want to put a section where the population is predominantly Indo-Guyanese or Guyanese of Indian ancestry and call it Little Guyana? No, I think what's going on is that you have this business called Little Guyana Bake Shop in the area, and maybe you were thinking that Little Guyana Bake Shop, so you just give it. But then they said that is the largest. That is the area in which the largest population of Guyanese live outside of Guyana. What? That is the area in which the largest population of Guyanese live outside of Guyana, Little Guyana, down there. Y'all give me a break, boss, man. Like I don't know. I don't know what was happening with and like I'm saying, our people seem not to care. Our people seem not to care. Our people are just content with sitting back at home and collecting the parliamentary stipend or soliciting the assistance of people from wherever they get assistance, financial donations, and so on, and they get paid. They pay themselves in that our party headquarters there, Congress Place, or wherever else, Lamar Street, or whatever else the AP and UFC office is, and that's it. And I'm not beating anybody up. I'm just stating the facts as I see it. I saw my very good friend, um, Mrs. Archer, saying there that that's her feeling. She feels like me. Just stop looking at and stop dealing with politics in Guyana because, you know, our people are not doing anything. Our leaders are not necessarily doing anything. Nothing to make the situation, get better. And I'm saying, while we're running around talking about the PPP mismanaging the flood or the PPP not putting systems in place to prevent the flood, if the truth is to be told, there's like I keep saying, I don't blow sand in the wind. I don't blow air. I don't criticize people for the sake of criticizing. I look at the facts. And the facts of the matter are currently there is, like in Kokwani, there's absolutely nothing that any government can do to prevent what's going on in Kokwani from going on. What can a government do to stop the river banks from overflowing? The river has overflowed its banks by feet, by yards, by yards. So what is a government expected to do? I think what should be happening now is that, I mean, and I'm saying both the PPP and the AP and UFC are kind of callous in this matter because they are not seeking to come together and work in the interest of the people. Stop cussing out each other and work together in the interest of the people. If you asked the PPP to come to the table to discuss the flood relief and what you can do to help to alleviate the problem. And they refused to then make it known to the public so that we can take the necessary action. But you can't sit there cussing each other out and the people suffering. And like I said last night, while here in New York, we sitting pretty because the news that I saw this morning said that for the last maybe 24, 48, 72 hours, New York City has not registered a COVID death. New York City has not registered a positive COVID case, a new positive COVID case. As a matter of fact, the situation is so good that they said that it is the rate is the daily rate is zero. It's at zero. But in Guyana, we can't say the same. We can't say the same for Guyana. In Guyana, the rate is flying off the charts. And then we've got a situation where the government, obviously they have to, and they have opened a number of shelters, flood shelters. And for those people who have never gone through a major flood, you may not know what a shelter is, but the the people pack everybody who feels that they need a place to stay in a particular building. They bring food and supply it to you. Sometimes you got to find your own food. They ensure that you're okay for the most part. I don't know what they're doing this time around. The last time around, the local authority in the area was responsible for ensuring the security of the residents in that shelter. And the local authority in the area was responsible for monitoring the shelter to ensure that people are comfortable and all of that. I don't know if the same thing obtains now, but I'm troubled because, like I said, let me see what the COVID-19 situation for today is. This man Ramsamy is talking about Guyana leads the Caribbean in COVID vaccination and a whole host of nonsense. Today, the 2nd of June, the figure in Guyana stands at 17,114 confirmed cases in Guyana. 17,114 confirmed cases. The number of deaths is 391. So we're butting hard for 400. We're butting hard for 400. I am not in a position to tell you what the deaths for the month of May is like. What is it saying here? I think the indication here is like 92 persons may have died in the month of May. Yeah, May ended as the deadliest month with 92 persons dying in May from COVID-19. 92 persons. So that 92 is pre-flood shelter figures. Now you've got to watch to see what the post-flood shelter figures are going to be, because that is the situation that will cause this massive explosion. When you pack all these people who are not vaccinated into one space, that's what you will get. That's what we will get. A massive explosion of COVID-19 cases in Guyana. And like I said, Guyana's health system cannot deal with that. Guyana's health system will be overwhelmed. Guyana's health system will be overwhelmed. And I am not sure I am not sure what will be the next move. Not sure what will be the next move. Like, we're still waiting on the availability of our guest. Not sure. I'm not sure what's going on with the comrade. But Deborah, that's my concern. I just sent a message to um Andrew asking him if what's the position with her. Waiting on a response because I know a lot of people want to hear what she has to say, and I have a number of questions to ask her because I want to hear what she has to say about a number of issues too, and more particularly, I would like to get a little more from her regarding her declared presidential candidacy. So I'd be happy to hear a few more things from her. That's an interesting posture. That's an interesting declaration. So I'm waiting to hear from her in that regard. We getting some info from Mr. Weeks here now.
Just give me a few, Mr. Branford. Give me a few. Give me a few.
Okay. All right. Yes. So like I was saying, the concern is this massive influx, this big plan to pack all these people in one building um, throughout the flooded regions of Guyana. I am concerned that it will radically increase the figures um, as it relates to the COVID-19 virus. We've got to be very careful. We've got to watch that situation. In the meantime, in other areas of the news, we've got a situation where the cost of living is flying up in Guyana. The cost of living is flying up. The other day you heard beef. Beef had gotten to $800 a pound for beef. Last night I saw something. I'm not. It has left me now. I just remembered it, but it's just left something going for 500. Something that I know would have been selling for maybe like $100, 150. It's now $500. Like, what is happening? What are we doing in Guyana? And in addition to that, these people are dismissing people left, right, and center, and you're concerned about the crime rate. How can you bring down the crime rate when you are dismissing people left, right, and the center? The crime rate it's not going to come down. Who's going to bring it down? How is it going to come down? You are making it bad for the country. Because these people who were once employed, well, probably some of them were once on the other side, and then they got employment during the AP and UFC period of governance. And now you're putting all of them back out of employment. You put them all of them back on the bread line. What do you think will happen? The crime rate is, but I believe that the intent, it is a deliberate, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but it looks to me like it's a deliberate plan to get these people. They've tried everything available, every tool available to them, everything possible to initiate and incite maybe a race war in Guyana, a political war. It has not happened so far. So now the best thing to do is to put people on the breadline. They will start stealing, get them to start harassing certain sections of the population, and then send the police after them and keep antagonizing the situation. I don't know. I don't know if Ghana is still a real place. It is. It looks to me that Ghana is just a place in the sun. I'm not sure it's a real place. Um, we've gotten to the point where our guest is available. Our guest is available. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to our
Good
guest,
morning. Good
Adriana.
morning to you, Mr. Burke, Rick Ford. How are you this morning?
Well, I am happy. I'm well. This is we are both Fords, but he is Rick and I am Brand.
Oh, you okay? I'm sorry. I'm
That's
so
fine.
sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. I just thought it was necessary to make sure we make the distinction, lest I get myself in a mix-up there, because some people are
Oh,
very sensitive these days. I don't know why that is happening.
okay, so you are
Brandford.
Brantford.
Right. Well, I mean, the people in
Okay.
Ghana know me as O'Neill, so that I believe that might be the best thing to do. Say O'Neill, and it clears up all the confusion.
All right. I'll call you Brantford. I usually
Okay.
like to call people by their by
The right thing, the government, as they say.
well, let's say that. Let's say that. Let's say, but it's a pleasure being on your program this morning.
Yeah.
And I apologize for being late. I had an early meeting, and so I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, I tried my best to do a nice piece of filler, and I guess the people learned a lot from the discussion I had, and some people are eagerly awaiting some information on some words, some kind of words of assurance from you this morning. I wanna welcome you to the program. This is a program in which we or on which we do lots of interviews, and we help to circulate the news as they relate to things in Guyana and Guyanese in the diaspora. And we certainly look forward to hearing from our leaders in Guyana. Um, I wanna start by going to what I think might be the beginning. Um, I know that you are a former employee of Gaisuko.
Yes.
So I Gaisuko is in the news a lot these days. It has been in the news a lot for quite a long while. Um, and we kind of have been worried about Gaisuko. So I would like to ask you first up, how would you describe your stint at the helm of the communication network in Gaisuko?
Well, I'll tell you one caution before I continue.
Okay.
I used to be the communications manager for Gaisuko. And as
Hmm.
the communications managers it's a very privileged position.
Okay.
So I usually say the communications manager, you know everything. And so, and one of the things, because of the privileged position I held, I tried to stay away from conversations on Gaisuko. And I think maybe if you talk to another manager, it's different than if you talk to a communications manager.
Okay.
So you follow, because one of the things, I'm sworn to confidentiality, if I can put it that way. As a
Hmm.
communications information person, it's like a lawyer. You give the lawyer information, and the lawyer should only use that information for the purpose for which it is intended. I use that same principle in my communications profession, because as a communications manager officer, it's a very privileged position. For you to defend organizations, they have to tell you the truth. And therefore, it's very important that you treat with that truth that you know very carefully. So it is on that basis that I stay away from discussions on Gaisuku,
Hmm.
because of the privileged position that I have held.
Well, I appreciate that and I understand it because I too once served in a privileged position because it was a position where I was exposed to quite a bit of information. So I've got to be careful as to what I say in regards to certain aspects of national security. Um,
And in my case, it's not even necessarily national security. It's in my case, it's about a responsibility to an organization and the people who work with the organization. And one of the things I say to people that even when I was at Gaisuko, I used to say that. I mean, I'll share it with you. There were times when the APNU and AFC was in government at the time, and there are times when I had to make a decision, And people used to say, Adriana, be careful. It's almost like you're fighting against the government. And I used to say to them that my first obligation is not to the government. My first obligation is to the managers and the company that I work for. And even if the government should come up against the company that I work for and the employees who I represent, then I'm going to have to come up against the government too. So I'm sharing that with you to tell you that it's a point of professionalism, because I know we're going to go some places in this discussion. So I need to set this tone so that we would. And it's a professionalism that you have to stand by and maintain. And so, like I said to you, it's not even a case of national security, but it's knowing that as a communications manager, my first obligation or your first obligation is not to the government. I used to say to people that I don't work for the government, I work for the state. Right. And GAISUCO was a semi-autonomous agency, but I don't work for the government. I wasn't a PR person for the government. I was the communications manager for GAISUCO. So if the government should come against GAISUCO's principles, the organizations had principles, it fell under the Companies Act, then we would have to tell the government that. Sure. And I held that line at GAISUCO, and I said that, yes, there are things I respect the government, but there's a certain professional line that you don't cross. And I'll tell you what, I close on this point. What I found invariably, when you, even the government, it doesn't matter, when you say to the government that, look, this organization here, we operate based on principles, we operate under the company laws, and therefore we would like to abide by those. Invariably, you find that people, they may fuss a bit, but then they come into alignment. And that's the level of professionalism, because at the end of the day, after Adriana Thomas leaves the company should still continue. But if Adriana Thomas should reduce the professionalism of the institution, of the organization, then when she leaves, the organization and the company will be weaker. So I think it's important that we as professionals, that we hold a certain professional stance, not for us, not for our individual professionalism, but for the maintenance and the sustainability of the quality of the institution, the company in my case, and whether you're in the private sector or the public sector or the civil society sector, it's a professional position you have to take. So I thought it important to make that point before we. Yes.
Yeah. So I appreciate that, and like I said, I understand the constraints, but I mean, even after you would have left GAISUCO under less than normal circumstances.
I was fired, you can say.
Let's phrase it that way.
I was fired, yes.
There are a number of other people who suffered a similar fate when after this PPP administration went into office. And I know that you would have started up, or you were managing, leading an organization that was intended to assist in cushioning the impact of this sudden firing of those people. Can you give us an update on the status of that organization and the work you've been doing?
Sure, Bedford. Actually, we started it was more or less a network, a support group, and it's called the Next Level Support Network. Mm-hmm. And the Next Level Support Network was intended to support those public servants whose services were being terminated over the past months, and to provide them with support. And whether that support was economic support, psychosocial support, or any other support, mental health, and the support was really as the link to link them to whatever support that they needed. But what we found was that many of the persons who were laid off were this is quite an interesting laying off, in the sense that many of those persons were professionals.
Yeah.
And therefore, the needs of professionals who have degrees and master's degrees and in some cases PhDs would be different from the needs of persons who are being laid off without necessarily that kind of qualification.
Right.
And so that was one reality. The other reality was that I think that we just sort of set up this organization, and here's where I'm making a point for perhaps, I know that the other organizations like the APNU, they were doing something, but we did not necessarily have the authority. And I want to make the point here of the importance of authority. So even though we were rendering assistance, there was so much that we could have done and no more. And people realized that. And so very often what is important is that there is some sort of authority involved in, because yes, while we were doing it from a civil society standpoint, it's a highly political move. Mm-hmm. So I think, and this is my assessment based on how the program went and the response to the program. So I think that there needed a more concerted political response, if I can put it that way. Okay. Because you see, the authority would have been from the political side, so to speak, because it was a very, as a matter of fact, it is a very political move, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
So if I can, but we were able to, having said that, we were able to, we had a few sessions where we've invited persons to share on the experience. I think determination, to share the experience of being terminated and also how they were coping. So we had, I think, 1 or 2 of those sessions. It gives people an opportunity to vent. And because in many cases, the termination was sudden. After, I don't think that leaders, and I'll say this, I'm usually very honest, Branford, with my comments. And I don't think that leaders understand the impact their decisions have on people. I don't think so. And so, because when you would have worked with an organization for 10 years, 20 years, in my case, I was just called into a room and told that, we are terminating your service. I was telling my mom the other day that, and I was just reflecting. I didn't even know how to share this with my mother. My mother, it took me months to actually tell my mother that I was fired. Oh, wow. And because my mom is in her 80s, and how do I say to her, Mommy, I was fired. And it took me months to do that. And I was telling her, I said, she said to me, she said, but you really used to work hard in that job. You used to come home at 9, 10 o'clock. And I said, yeah. I said, sometimes I used to come home after 12 because, it was going through a difficult period and you just had to, there were things to be done. And I was telling her that one day I was driving home from work, just reflecting on I was driving home from work and I fell asleep. And then when I opened my eyes, my car was going straight into a police vehicle. Oh. And I was sharing with my mom. So I just woke up in time when the car was going into the police vehicle. And I was able to pull the car across to the other side. And I said, oh my God, these police are going to come behind me. They will think I'm drunk or something. And so the police started driving behind me and they stopped me because I guess they thought that I was drunk or something. And they asked for my license and so on. But the point I want to make is that when you're called after making all of those sacrifices, and there are people who might have made more sacrifices than those. So I was sharing that with my mom the other day, and we were reflecting on how much I had contributed to this job. And then you're called into a room and you're told that it's not about being fired. It's about the way it was done. And this is part of the discussions that we've had. Many persons would have had similar experiences. And so if there's one thing that I can say to the powers that be in terms of how you treat with separation and terminating people's services,
yeah, I'm following. You don't want.
I know, I just got a bit emotional at that point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One of the things that I would say is that, you know, Branford, I think we're yet to understand that it doesn't matter what you look like. We're all human beings.
Yes.
And the same way you would like to be treated, it's the same way you should treat with others. And so if there's one thing I can say to the powers that be, if you have reason to terminate the services of human beings, do it with some respect. And so I want to say that, but just to say to you, come back to your point, to answer your question, I think that the program, like I said, because of most of the persons were professionals, I think many of them went on to do other things. So the kind of support that was needed, I guess they didn't need much of the support that we were given. I can also say this to you too. I was trying to hold this back, but I'll tell you, I rather suspect that there was some fear too. There was some, I didn't want to share this, but I feel led to share it. There was some fear. I sensed that people were afraid to get involved, that, you know, people felt that they had children, and if they get involved, and it was interesting, if they got involved in a program to help them, that they could have been implicating themselves and their family members and so on. So there were people who needed the help, but did not reach out of fear. And I hope that we will talk a little bit about this fear this morning too.
Well, I noticed that maybe I don't think this is fear. Maybe I think it's more out of the want or the need, the desire to see betterment in the country. I've noticed that you have decided to jump headlong into politics. So I like to segue to politics, take you into the political realm a little. I get the impression that you decided to go there primarily. Well, I don't know. You'll tell us, because you want to see betterment. Usually in Guyana, people who get into politics do so either because they are called or invited to by someone of the political organizations, or they form one of their own. Where are you standing today in terms of politics?
That's a very interesting question that you ask. And let me tell you something. It doesn't feel like politics. It feels like more like purpose.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like politics. It's I think it's more a desire to help people to become the best version of themselves. And so it is driven out of that desire. And Branford, if you look at politics, we've had the same people in leadership for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years in some cases. There is no new thinking. So we expect the same people who've been in politics for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, to come up with new thinking and new direction. And when I say in politics, I mean at the helm, because I've been involved in civic work, civil society work, development for the past 17 years. And 17 years ago, some of the things that we were doing, I see people are now starting those things again. For example, we 17 or years ago, or in 2003, 2004, we were doing cleanup campaigns. And I see people doing those things all over again. And I realized that except you have the authority, much of this good work will not be institutionalized. So what you find is that a next generation will come and keep doing the same things over and over again. But in terms of having profound change, you don't really necessarily have profound change. So I've decided that, you know what, there's need for new thinking in our political leadership. And in order to make some profound changes, you have to have the authority. Or else you'll spend, I see people writing letters, I see people saying all sorts of nice things, but except you have the authority, you would not, many of those changes will not happen. Because I once read something that said, you cannot motivate a man above his motives. So you can write as many letters as you would like to write. You can have as many programs as you can have. You cannot motivate a man or woman above his or her motives. So what you need then, you need to have leaders whose motives are different, if I can put it that way. So those were some of the considerations. And I believe that as a people, we should have been much further than where we are. I think that we can be much further ahead. We can move further ahead. You know, some people say, I hear people say that, oh, Guyana is a lost country. I've given up on Guyana. You know, Branford, sometimes I feel that way. But now every day I'm getting more and more excited about the possibility.
All right, tell me about it. Tell me about it. I noticed in an interview with Mr. Hines, you declared your presidential candidacy. So tell me something about it, man. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, it would be good to have a woman. Well, we've already had a female president, but it would be very good to have a woman in the as president, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, we had a female imposter.
We had a female president, yes. Yeah. But I think that my interest in becoming running for president is, like I was saying to somebody, I felt that somebody had to step up. We keep talking and we keep talking and we keep talking and not acting. So I thought that somebody had to step up and say that, you know what, despite the challenges, I'm going to do this. And I'll tell you what, from the time you announce that you intend to run for president, you become, I won't put it this way as a target, but more visible. And one of the things I discovered is that much of what happens does not happen on the surface. It happens behind the scenes. And so so a lot of, if I can put it this way, the pressures, it does not necessarily happen on a screen. It happens silently behind the scenes. You see things happen and you say, okay. And so somebody once said that you have to count the costs. And so it's a decision where there's a cost that's attached to it and you have to count the costs. But I do believe that in Singapore, for example, if I can give you some of these examples that I've given Dr. Hines on his program, we have all these things that we say. We say that, once blood has been shed, it's difficult to move forward. I say to people, Rwanda in 1994 had a genocide and 800,000 people were killed in a genocide in less than 100 days in Rwanda.
Yeah.
And Rwanda was able to pick itself up and become the fastest growing African country with a 7.5% annual growth. And this was less than 16 years after the genocide. Now that takes some decisions, that takes some will to move from, this is moving a society that experienced a genocide of 800,000 people. That's more than the population of Guyana. Mm-hmm. And they were able to move forward. And Bradford, can you imagine that we're still talking about what happened in the 60s? That was 1994. And we're saying that because of what happened in the 60s, we can't move forward, right? And so that's one point. We're saying because blood has been shed, we can't move forward. 800,000 people died in Rwanda and they move forward. Why can't Guyana move forward too? Singapore got independence a year before Guyana. And Singapore moved from a third world country to a first world country. And they move on two pillars, like I was saying in Dr. Hines' program, on trade and knowledge. Guyana has gold, diamond, bauxite, forests, more recently oil. Now, are you saying to me that we cannot do what Singapore did in about 2 generations? We can do it in 10 years or 1 generation? Of course we can. But like I was saying on the program with Dr. Hines, what Singapore and Rwanda, what they had for profound change to happen, we need 3 things. We need the capacity for change, the ability for change, and the will for change. What Rwanda and Singapore developed was the capacity for change, the ability for change, and the will for change. And one of the things I do a lot, I review the comments to in the comments in the press, and I in the absence of talking to people, that's another way of assessing people's opinions and their views, what they think. And we do not have the will. And so part of what we can talk about this morning is, because I've been focusing on this a lot, is not just what we do, but why we do what we do. Why is it that Guyana has not become like the Singapore of South America? Why is it that Rwanda can pick itself up and move forward and Guyana can't? So I'd like us to talk a bit more about the why and also about the solutions. So I thought that, I can mobilize a team of people who still believe in the ideal of one people, one nation, one destiny.
Okay.
And it's still an ideal, but I'm not going to apologize for being idealistic. Some people may say that you're naive. I'm not going to apologize for being naive. Because if you're really going to, you have to believe in something. You have to believe that Guyana can change. You have to believe that the people in Guyana can do like what the people in Rwanda did. They can do like what the people in Singapore did and make a decision. I think what happened in Rwanda, they made a decision that what happened in 1994 is not going to happen again. And they were driven by that decision. And so when are we going to make a decision that what happened in 1964 will never happen again? When are we going to make a decision that we will together move this country forward? When are we going to make a decision that we are not Indo-Guyanese and Afro-Guyanese? Yes, that's who we are. I'm proud of being an Afro-Guyanese. we're APNU and supporters and PPP supporters. We are 750,000 added value, as I call it. And added value means that, Branford, you bring an added value to Guyana. I bring an added value to Guyana. Our Indo-Guyanese brothers and sisters bring an added value to Guyana. And therefore, the road for us to travel is not to divide us and to separate us, but how can we bring that added value together so that we can achieve economic growth, so that we can achieve social cohesion, so that we can achieve sustainable development, so that we can leave a better Guyana for our children than the one that was handed to us. When are we going to do that?
Yes, certainly questions to be asked. You have in effect decided to be the agent for change, or one of the agents for change in Guyana. You alluded to the fact that we needed to look at two things in a little more detail: fear and the why. As a female, I want to use some colloquial terms. As a female jumping into the fray, the political fray, in a country where politics is predominantly controlled, or I don't know, the narrative in politics is controlled by men. How difficult do you see this climb or this fight, because Guyana's political arena has become one place of vile mudslinging. And if people want, so there are some people who don't like it and they want to make a difference, they want to be at the change, they try their best to be clean, but some people are not clean. So how difficult a challenge would it be for you as a female going into this arena with men who are vile and dirty, to get to the point where you can become the person who would have attracted the support of the majority of Guyanese and have them vote for you? One, and while doing so, isn't there a fear that you would become the next victim, such as the ones who they have been targeting in recent months? I mean, you have been dismissed, you've been fired, but not dragged before the court for political gain only, because in many of these cases don't have any case against these people. Aren't you fearful that you would become not the other victim, the one whose character is going to be so severely tarnished that it might be hard to pull it back from that bit of mud, that mud pit?
Branford, my faith drives me.
Okay.
And somebody called me after I made this decision, and they said, "Are you really serious?" Right? And I said to them, when somebody like me would have made a public announcement like that, it's because I would have went through all of the what if, the buts, all of that. And so by the time you make the announcement, you would have gone through all of the doubts, and should I now, and all of those things. And you would have, so I have gone through a lot of that. The other thing is that Ghana is a very masculine society, like you said, very masculine. And sometimes I even think that we as women are treated like men also, right? Because I thought that, I was just called and told that you're fired. Now I'm a single mother. I have a child. Yes, my child is an adult, but you didn't even think that, what was I? I had to think, what am I going home to tell my child? And so I said that, people treat us like men. But I've thought about all of that. And if I can use a scripture here and say that
Sure.
I am driven by my faith. And there's a scripture in the Bible that says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the purpose of the Lord that shall prevail.
Okay.
And so I am driven by, it doesn't matter who says and what they do. Many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the purpose of the Lord that shall prevail. And God's purpose will prevail in my life. And I usually say to people that when you really want to know if somebody has power, I said, the day somebody says to the sun, "Sun, I command you not to shine," and that sun obey that person, then I would say that person really got power. But until you can command the elements to not to do something and the elements obey, until you can do that as a human being, you don't really have power. And so I think I approach this from that standpoint, that I know somebody greater. I know somebody who is all powerful. I know somebody who is almighty, and his purpose will prevail in my life. But to come back to the people say sometimes, Adriana, be real, be practical then. Right? You may want to say be practical, but I say with faith, there's no practicality. The just shall live by faith, full stop. So anyway, so I want to make this point though, that to come back to, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be exposed to things. I'm not going to experience things. And so I do know that, and it's not even about me, but it's about people maintaining territory. It's about you now saying that you want to compete for territory. You want to compete for power. You want to compete for, and so it's not even about you per se, but it's about not making you successful, because people don't want to lose power. Nobody wants to lose power. So I've taken all of that into consideration. I'm not concerned about people, dragging me in the mud, so to speak. It comes with the territory. It comes with the so I'm not concerned about that in the least. I'm not concerned about the in terms of the criminalization and things like those. Like I said to you, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it's the purpose of the Lord that shall prevail in my life. Okay. And so even with the criminalization and all of these things, I look at what's happening to people, and I'll tell you what, I'll be honest with you. When I wrote that letter that got me fired, that letter in support of Roxanne Myers, the Deputy Chief Elections Officer, the night before, Roxanne and I, and I'll say this, Roxanne and I went to the same church for many years, for almost like 23 years, we were in the same church. And the night before, I went to see Roxanne. She was at the Betterverwachten police station. And we prayed with her. Well, we prayed, a group of us were there, and we prayed at the police station. And then we left. When I left, I thought that, you know what, Rihanna, that could have been you. When I saw Roxanne in that police station, I thought that could have been you. When I wrote that letter, I thought that if ever I find myself in that position, I would want somebody who's on the outside, who is free, to give up everything that they have to fight for me. Because I was in a position, I would be in a position that I cannot fight for myself. And so when I wrote that letter, I remember I was talking to a young person from the church the morning, and the young person said to me, I said, you know, Sister Roxanne is in the, she's at the police station. This is one of the young persons from the church who knew her. And the person said to me, this is somebody who was like maybe 19, 20. And they said, this is Sister Audrey, or they call me, write a letter for Shina. Write a letter for Shina. This is a young 19-year-old saying to me, write a letter for Shina. Write a letter for she. And I left the young person with, write a letter for Shina. And I felt that I needed to do that. One, because Roxanne and I went to the same church. Two, this was a sister that was in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And as a Christian, I felt that I had a duty to, because you see, the Bible says that God looks beyond our faults and he sees our needs. He saw our needs. And so and so very often we say we want to be God and get into the judgment seat. And so as a Christian, right, the Bible says a just man falleth 7 times, but he gets back up again. And so the point I'm making is that as a Christian, I felt that I needed to represent Roxanne. She was my sister in Christ. Mm-hmm. And so writing the letter came with consequences, but she was my sister in Christ. There's a song we sing in church, don't let a wounded soldier die.
Right.
And that soldier was wounded. And as a Christian, as a child of God, I could not do anything about it if I could have. So I say this to all the Christians who may have their own views. I say that to say that that God looks beyond our faults, and he looked beyond our faults and he saw our need. And the Bible says, "Ye who is without sin cast the first stone." So I wanted to make that point, particularly as it relates to. So I thought that that could have been me. And I remember there's a poem with about I think there was someone who was in a German camp at one point, and he wrote this poem. He said, first they came for the trade unionists. And I said, nothing. No, he said, first they came for, I think there was, first they came for, I think it was some, I can't remember the poem in its entirety. But he said, first they came for somebody, and I said nothing because I was not in that group. Then they came for somebody else, and I said nothing because I was not in that group. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I said nothing because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak for me. When I saw Roxanne, I thought that, this could have been me. Because, I say some bold things sometimes that people sometimes are not happy with. And I would want to know that there's somebody who's on the outside who is free, who will lose their job for me. And so those were some of the reasons that I took that step. And I want to make this point is that Roxanne Myers is still my sister in Christ. And even as Jesus met the woman at the well, I feel the need to say this at this forum this morning. Even as Jesus met the woman at the well, and the people were saying to stone her, stone her. And Jesus looked at them and he said, "Ye who's without sin, cast the first stone." Mm-hmm. And I say this morning, even as we talk in the context of Roxanne Myers, that's my sister in Christ. And I say, ye who's without sin, Branford, cast the first stone.
So on that note, let me ask you a question. You don't have to answer, but I still ask it. Are you convinced that Roxanne did nothing wrong?
You put me in a. And the reason I wouldn't answer that question is because, and this is where I'd like us to go with that. One of the things I've been spending a lot of time on is not what has happened in Guyana, is why. And so I prefer to answer that question by saying, and if we're really going to solve our problems in Guyana, we have to look at the why. And if I was in a position of authority in Guyana with what happened in the 2020 elections, I would have focused less on the what happened and focused more on the why it happened. And let me tell you something. Let's come to the fear. Fear is as a result of an object. And so we look at the dark and we say that we were afraid of the dark. Do we have time?
Oh yeah, I have 15 minutes.
Okay, so we look at the dark and we say that that I'm afraid of the dark. The dark is a symbol of fear. And I think it's something that we need to address. Our two main political parties have become symbols of fear for the two main races. So if we are really going to, so I'm addressing this because I would like to for us to build on it at another point. So the PNC has become a symbol of fear for the Indo-Guyanese as a political party. The PPP has become a symbol of fear for Afro-Guyanese. And I think we need to ask ourselves, in an attempt to find a solution, how do we reduce these symbols of fear for Afro-Guyanese and Indo-Guyanese? One of the reasons why the coalition won in 2015 and perhaps in 2011 is because the coalition was not seen as a symbol of fear. I think there were people in the coalition who people saw as representing symbols of fear, but not the coalition. So people were willing to trust. So I think that what we need to do is to address so perhaps we need new people in the PPP, we need new people in the PNC who will reduce the symbols of fear that the Afro-Guyanese have for the PPP, which is because there's some people in the PPP who are seen as symbols of fear, and to remove some of those people from the PNC. I'm being very candid here, because if we're going to solve our problems, we have to be honest about what the issues are. Sure, and so there's some people in the PNC who are symbols of fear to the Indo-Guyanese. So moving forward, we need to reduce the symbols of fear. And in those two major parties, and I still believe that the coalition concept is the way forward, but the coalition has some work to do in terms of not representing or that symbol of fear, not being that symbol of fear. So I'd like to say to you, what happened in 2020? For me, when I did my own analysis or my assessment, it showed the extent of the fear among certain groups of our two main political parties. And so for me, what is more important than to address the what happened? The what happened is easy to address. You fire people, you change the laws, that's the easy part. But how do you change the way we see each other? For me, that's more important. How do you reduce that fear, the symbol of fear that the PPP represents to Afro-Guyanese, or the symbol of fear that the PNC represents to Indo-Guyanese? That for me is more important. Why it happened, not what happened. And so if we're to find a solution, the what is the easy part.
So I'll just share with you, and then I'll move to the next question. I absolutely feel that Ms. Myers did nothing wrong. I mean, that's my conviction. I don't feel that she erred. She committed a crime, and I will stand by that until I can see evidence to the contrary. However, in regards to the fear and so on, the powers that be are suggesting to me and to the world that the victory or the claimed or proclaimed victory on the one hand and the proclaimed loss or defeat on the other hand was as a result of corrupt dealings rather than fear. So how do we, if that is proven to be correct, that it was not necessarily fear this time around, how do we treat with this aspect that would have once proven um, contributed to the victory or loss in this thing? And then I would like to go back to the original question that I asked when we came into the political segment. Where are you? Are you representing the coalition? Have you declared your candidacy as a member of the coalition or as an independent on this on just fishing around?
But let me say this. Let me answer your first question. If you want to know if there was fear, look at the response, the immediate response after the declaration was made. And for me, as someone in the field of social scientist, not quite, but in that field, as someone who's been working in behavior for a while, life is about stimulus and response. When you look at currently what is happening, as someone who worked in behavior, who understands a little bit of social psychology, you realize that what is stimulating or what has stimulated this response? Everything we do in life comes out of one or two emotions, either out of the emotion of love or the emotion of fear. And so what you see happening very often, you realize that this is coming out of the emotion of fear, not necessarily the emotion of love. And so the fear is there, but it depends on, so it's coming out of the emotion of fear that I have to protect myself, I have to protect, and in order to do that, I have to act in this way. It takes a lot of trust for the coalition, as a matter of fact, to form a coalition government. You have to let people in. You have to let them in on confidential things. You have to let them in. So, and that doesn't happen automatically. I know that you're probably running out of time. So I want to say, on the one hand, that even the response that you're seeing now, it's a response to a stimulus. And if everything we do comes out of the emotion of love or fear, there's a lot of fear that we're seeing. The other question that you ask is in terms of, what was your last question? Sorry, your other question, whether
you are representing, if you're joining the coalition and being a representative of theirs or an independent candidate.
This may shock you, what I'm about to say.
Okay.
That let me shock you. I will align with a group that represents my values.
Okay.
And where I feel that I would have an opportunity to transform that group. So if the coalition, if I feel that the coalition, aligning with the coalition will represent my values, and I would have an opportunity to transform the coalition and to build a team of believers in the one people, one nation, one destiny, then I may very well decide to go with the coalition. If the PPP if I feel that the PPP represents my values and I would have an opportunity to transform the PPP, then I may very well decide to be aligned with that group. And if neither of them feel that, they would want to be associated with me, then in that case, I will form an independent group.
So what do you say?
I told you I will shock you.
What do you say? What do you say to the person who would say that you may be genuflecting to the PPP as an expression of a desire to reconcile so that you can be readmitted into the space that you once occupied?
Where is that?
In terms of your occupation.
My occupation? No. I'm the managing director for a company. I'm building my own company now. And so I have no interest in going back into that kind of into that job. I did that for almost 5 years, and I did my best, and I'm happy. I'm now the managing director for a company that I am building, and we're doing a lot of good things. But I tell you why I said that. I was very deliberate when I said that. Very deliberate in that Indo-Guyanese are not going anywhere. Afro-Guyanese are not going anywhere. So we have to develop, we have to learn to coexist, or we would not exist. And so when I said that, I don't want to give the impression that I'm opposed to the PPP, or I'm opposed to the coalition, right? I said what I said, very deliberate and very strategic in terms of what I said at this point.
I know the strategy.
Because I also believe that change is always possible. So in addition to that, I think going forward, and this is my approach for, I think I've put it in a document, I would like to build on what Cheddi Jagan has done and what Forbes Burnham has done. In the case of Cheddi Jagan, I particularly like Cheddi Jagan's working class approach, his approach to representing and developing the working class population. In the context of Forbes Burnham, I particularly like Forbes Burnham's approach to community development. And so I believe that we can pull from something that Cheddi Jagan would have done well, something that Forbes Burnham would have done well, and we can move those forward. I think we can pull from what the APNU has done well, what this current government is doing or has done well, and we can build on those things. So I'm not the kind of person, sometimes people say you need to take a position, right? And I'm saying because we've been taking a position, that's why we are where we are. But until we see that, look, we have to move this country, with this country forward together. And last thing I'd like to say on that is that if I only say that I may align with the coalition, it means then that I'm thinking that the PPP probably cannot change, right? Well, I believe that the PPP can change. I want the PPP to change. It's necessary that the PPP change because the PPP is not going anywhere. We have to learn, and so we have to. So what the point that I'm making is in terms of, I believe that any one of the coalition, any one of the political parties that represent my values, and they're willing to give me an opportunity to assist in transforming the party and the way they govern, the way they do development, I will be happy. If neither of them is interested, then I will go the route of the independent route.
So we have 5 minutes, but I've got to get in 2 questions.
I feel as if the sky is falling on my head now that I've said that.
No, that is not from me. Not from me. You'll never find that happening with me.
Sorry, I'm just joking.
What if I were to, well, not me. What would you say to the person who will say that they would prefer, they want to support you, and I've seen in the comments here that a lot of people are saying that they wanna support you, but they would prefer for you to be the person who would, instead of joining one of the 2 organizations. This program has a lot of pro APNU / AFC / PNCR followers and supporters. So let's say I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. The people are saying, hey, we don't want to hear you talk about joining with the PPP. We were comfortable with you saying join with the APNU FC, but for political gains, you can take a position which we will feel comfortable joining you on, that says pull out of the PPP those persons who have your shared values, pull them with you across to the APNU AFC. wouldn't that be a viable position to take politically rather than to suggest that you are open to becoming a part of the PPP machinery with the hope that they will change?
Um, yes, you are. That's some question. I would say that let me put it this way. I have a lot of very good friends in the coalition.
Mhm.
I am very close to a lot of people in the coalition. These are people who I've been friends with for years. And I feel that I feel that for me, it's about an opportunity to move Guyana forward. And if the coalition would like to give me that opportunity, the reason I said I'd like to run for president is because it's important to bring the thinking to that authority.
Mhm.
If except you have that authority, it's you're going to be operating under somebody else's motives again.
Mhm.
And so for me, it makes no sense to get involved in politics because I like what I do well at what I do. So there's no need for me to get into politics if I can't really make a difference. All right. It's not a career for me. It's not necessarily a job for me. It's if I'm not going to be able to transform it. I like what I do as a career and as a job.
Mhm.
And so it's so if the coalition gives me an opportunity to lead the coalition, so to speak, and I'm going to be straight up, to lead the coalition and to build a team of people who believe in the one people, one nation, one destiny, to transform Guyana, to make it into the Singapore of South America, then I am open to that.
All right.
Likewise, like I said, if the PPP feels that, can you imagine me as the head of the PPP? And so,
Listen, there's nothing today that will shock me. I believe in the fulfillment of prophecy in any form, way, shape, or fashion. But for the people in
and
the,
what I'm doing today, I'm deliberately pushing here. If you notice, I'm deliberately pushing some limitations that we have set, huh?
uh-huh.
So I said that, and I want you to know I'm being very deliberate and strategic with what I'm saying. Huh?
I know, that's why I said I see where you're going politically, and that's why I asked the last question. I was trying to pull you around from where you're going to where I want you to go.
Okay, and I fell into your trap.
Not necessarily, not
I
necessarily.
know.
You were still skillfully trying to evade the direct answer on the question.
Yeah, but the point that I'm making is that I am, like I said to you, I am open. I do believe that there are enough people in Guyana who can, in 10 years, I would give us 10 years to move Guyana from where it is, strengthening our institutions, reorienting our people. When I see a young man who is 15 years old robbing two pastors, it says something to me about, does he understand his purpose as a citizen of Guyana, as a member in this democracy? As members in this democracy, we have roles and responsibilities. And so have we convinced him of his roles and responsibilities as a member in this democracy? And so I am willing to mobilize those people who can mobilize the citizenry, the communities around making Guyana the Singapore of South America, around a better Guyana, around us becoming the best version of ourselves, around us becoming competitive in the global context, not only in the regional context. And I believe that there are enough people around who are who can help us to develop that ability I spoke about earlier, the capacity, and they have the capacity and to build the capacity at the country level to so that profound change can happen.
All right. Well, I really am out of time, but I want to steal 2 minutes more. My wife has to occupy the space that I'm occupying, but I want to steal 2 minutes of our time. And ask this question. We've heard a lot from the current political opposition, parliamentary and otherwise, about the so-called PPP's mismanagement of the flood and of the pandemic. If you had the platform to address Guyanese, particularly regarding the pandemic, what would your message to them as one of the potential future presidential candidates of Guyana be? What would your message to them be in this moment of crisis?
The pandemic. I think the pandemic has presented to us a challenge that we've never really had before. And this is not only in the Guyana context, but in the global context. And I think that, and I must compliment the government on this one. I think the government has done a good job with the vaccine in terms of bringing the vaccines to the country and making the vaccines available. So I'd like to say on that point, I think that the government has done a good job on the vaccine point. I do believe, though, that we need to look at the the degree of openness of the country, because I've been seeing that we have 4 to 3 deaths per day with a population of 750,000. That concerns me.
Mm-hmm.
That I am very concerned that we're having 3 to 4 deaths per day. We had, I think, 90 deaths for the month of May. With a population of 750,000, I am very concerned. So I would hope that the powers that be would take that into consideration. We do not have 5 million people, 6 million people. So you have to take that into consideration. And the second point is, I think at the personal level, we need to be more responsible. I think people need to be more responsible. They need to adhere to the COVID-19 rules. I see people are still going to parties and they're making a big joke out of it, jumping out of buses and all of these things. People need to be responsible. We want, at the end of this pandemic, to have as many as our citizens, not just alive, but and well and healthy. And therefore, each and every one of us, Bradford, we have to go the extra mile to ensure that we remain safe and healthy. Yes, it's not what we're accustomed to, but we cannot put our lives and the lives of our family members at risk. So that's one thing. I want to quickly talk about the flooding. The flooding situation is when people say that we need to move the city because the city floods, I said to them that, for me, clean all of the drains in the city, and then still if the city floods, tell me that we need to move the city at this point. But don't tell me that we need to move the city at this point when all of the drains are filled. So I think our approach to problem solving, we move from 0 to 100 very quickly without understanding all the processes in between 0 and 100. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying that what we need to do, we have a maintenance problem more than we have. Yes, we have a flooding problem, but we also have a maintenance problem. So if we can address that maintenance problem substantially, I believe that it will severely reduce the flooding that we were experiencing. So we have a lot of work to do, a lot of work to do.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for carving this maybe like close to 2 hours out of your morning time and to spend with us. But I want to put you up against the wall even more now by trying to get you to commit to a part 2 of this discussion sometime in the near future, next week, maybe the week after.
Oh yes, I'll be happy to. I'll be very happy. I enjoyed this actually.
Thank you very much.
I
I
enjoyed
enjoyed
this.
it.
And I would like to say thank you for having me on the program. I'd like to say thanks to your viewers and listeners. And I really not only enjoyed it, but I think it was very educational and informative. And thank you. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Godspeed.
Godspeed.
I must let you know that on this program, we are not fearful of talking about our religious persuasions and convictions and so on. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and I make it known loud and clear. I don't care who has a difficulty with me doing this as a Seventh-day Adventist or being a Seventh-day Adventist in the first place. I would encourage everybody, even if you don't want to be a Seventh-day Adventist, become a Christian. Trust God in some way, shape, or form, and save your soul.
If I can just add to that to say that I share that same view. While I'm tolerant of other persons' religious beliefs, I say to people, the way I serve God works for me.
Mhm.
And if the way you serve God works for you, then I respect that. But the
Sure.
way I serve God works for me.
Definitely, and that is something that we all should do. Like I said, I do not care for anybody's feeling about me being a Seventh-day Adventist. I respect I have an uncle is a Baptist pastor, I have a cousin is a Nazarene pastor, I have friends all over the place. I believe in the scripture. The Bible, God says, whichever is His church at the last day, He will bring all together right there. So there we are. Happy to have you. God's richest blessings to you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day too. It was a pleasure.
Same. Thank you. All right. So there we have it. We've had our discussion with the wonderful Miss Audriana Thomas. We were happy to have her. And I am way out of time. And I wish you a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you again on Friday. Until then, I'm out.